Right, so we actually have kind of a big update regarding the whole 8 passengers situation, but more specifically to do with Ruby and Kevin Frankie. If you remember, a long time ago at this point, it might have genuinely been about a year ago, maybe just under a year, but we kind of got introduced to the theory that Kevin Frankie and Ruby Frankie had split up. If I remember correctly, the first time we heard about this was an anonymous post that was on Reddit that was apparently by someone who knew the family personally, and they told everyone that they've actually split. Doesn't really seem like it's concrete evidence, to say the least, but it actually turns out they were pretty correct. This person's identity was actually confirmed at the time by one of the mods on one of the 8 passengers subreddits, so I did believe it in a way because most of the stuff I'd seen on that subreddit by the mods turned out to be true. But yeah, of course, at the time it was speculation, we didn't know 100%, but since the arrest of Ruby Frankie, it became very apparent that Kevin and Ruby had been split for a long time. Kevin even said that he hadn't even seen his own kids for months and he was doing this trying to get his marriage back on track, which to a lot of people, including myself, seemed like very strange reasoning. We still don't really understand that. But one thing that was made very clear from that information was the fact that Kevin did want this marriage to work out in the long run. Even regardless of the fact they'd been split up for so long and Ruby kind of kicked him out of the house and he'd just kind of been doing his own thing for many months. He clearly wanted this to work out, and according to the attorney in one of the many interviews that we've covered on this channel, his attorney actually said that Kevin still wanted it to work up until one of the phone calls they had after Ruby was arrested. And apparently Kevin came to the conclusion that he was being manipulated by Ruby. And of course we also know at this point that Kevin wants to get custody of the children, which obviously has a lot of people extremely worried. Mainly because Kevin isn't exactly the angel that he's trying to portray himself as his attorney is trying to portray himself as, and yeah, I get it right, it's his attorney's job, he's doing his job. He has to try and big up Kevin and make him seem like a good guy. But I don't think it's fooling anyone because Kevin was involved in all of these videos that we've been criticising for years. He was even part of the Connexions content at the beginning, and it wasn't up until this year that Kevin was no longer a part of the videos, so it's not like he had nothing to do with this by any means. But today as I'm recording this video, we actually got a new article to do with Kevin and Ruby, and as we can see by the headline here, it says, Kevin Frankie files for divorce, domestic relations injunction against wife Ruby amid child abuse allegations. Which really isn't surprising. People split for a long time before they eventually get divorced. It's a long process. But it seems like, according to this article by KUTV, who have been completely on top of the whole 8 passengers situation since the arrest, they tend to break a lot of this news first. They are a local station after all, so I do trust them. But it seems like Kevin has finally taken that step to actually file a divorce. Kevin Frankie, husband of 8 passengers YouTube vlogger Ruby Frankie, is filing for divorce in a domestic relations injunction outlining stringent measures to govern the conduct of both parties involved. Now, one thing that is very interesting about this, and I guess I assumed would make it a bit more complicated, is the fact that Ruby is currently in custody. I was actually watching one of Emily D. Baker's live streams today. In her opinion, this could take like 6 months to a year. She also said that she didn't really know 100%, it was just a bit of a guess. But this definitely seems like it's going to be something that takes a long time. And again, I would assume the process is a lot more complicated, the fact that Ruby is actually in custody. The petition for the divorce is private. The paperwork was filed Wednesday in 4th District Court. The injunction imposes several restrictions on the parties to ensure a peaceful and fair proceeding. Now, I think it's safe to say the reason why this is private, and also this is something that Emily D. Baker said in her video, who, by the way, is someone who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. So if you do want a much more detailed version of this video by someone who knows a lot more than I do, like I mentioned, I would definitely recommend watching Emily D. Baker's live stream. But I think it's safe to say the reason why this is private is because it involves the custody of the children, which, as we covered in a previous video, is going to be a private matter from here on out. This is actually the case because reporters were reporting on what happened in these custody hearings when they shouldn't have been allowed to be in there. I believe it was the Daily Mail that did that first, don't take my word for it, but if I remember correctly, I think it was the Daily Mail. And I mean, if we're being honest here, it should be a private matter in itself, especially when it involves the children and the custody of the children. But as we also know, that doesn't involve the child abuse case. That isn't a private matter, as we know. We are going to hear updates as they come out. When them updates actually do come out, we have no idea. It is going to be a slow process. Now, we actually have screenshots of the petition here. I'm not going to go through the petition itself word by word. We're going to carry on with the article for now, but if you do want to look, it's on screen right now. This is the first page, and then here's the second page, or the second screenshot, I should say. Key provisions of the injunction include prohibitions against harassment, domestic violence, and misuse of personal information. According to the injunction, the Frankies are barred from engaging in any actions that would disturb the peace or safety of the other. This includes specific bans on electronics, harassment, or any form of abuse. Concerning property, the injunction forbids the transfer, concealment, or disposal of any asset without mutual consent or a court order. This is obviously because the assets are going to be involved in the actual divorce itself and figuring out who gets what and all that stuff. Basically, none of that can happen before the divorce is actually, like, complete. That's at least how I understand it. This move aims to prevent the dissipation of assets before the equitable distribution in the divorce proceedings, which I think is a much smarter way of saying what I just said. I probably dumbed it down a lot. Furthermore, the court has placed particular emphasis on the welfare of any minor children involved. It restricts both parties from making derogatory remarks about each other in the presence of their children and from influencing the children's views regarding custody or parent time. This is something I would assume would be in most, cases of divorce. I've actually never been divorced, so I don't know 100%, but it seems like something that would be mentioned. You know, the parents can't talk shit about the other parent in front of the children. I feel like that should be the case, right? The injunction remains in effect until a final decree is entered, the petition is dismissed, or the court issues a different order. Parties can request modifications to the injunction, subject to court approval. Now, one thing I don't know, and I'd be very interested to know, is how this is going to work from Ruby's side of the things. I mean, she has a lot that she's currently dealing with. I mean, it's due to her actions that she's dealing with all of this right now. Obviously, the speeding case is dismissed now, so she doesn't have to worry about that, but she does have this child abuse case, and now this divorce as well, hence why I would assume that this would take a long time to fully go over, because there's a lot going on right now. Now, with this news breaking, it obviously does beg the question, and I've seen a lot of debate and opinions about this, but what are the true intentions of Kevin Frankie in this case? Like, why has he done this? Obviously, it could simply be because he wants to divorce the woman who is currently being arrested for these horrible allegations, as you would think most people would want. But then, of course, you have the people who are just assuming that Kevin is doing this to help his custody battle. I mean, regardless of what it is, this divorce clearly needed to happen. I'd be very worried if Kevin didn't want to have a divorce after this. But yeah, I've got to say, I do find it a bit mad that Kevin seems to be getting away from this completely scot-free. Like, I assume they've investigated him, right? I feel like that would be safe to assume that they've investigated him, they've looked into it, and they've decided he hasn't done anything wrong, but nothing he can be charged over. And I get that he wasn't actually involved at the time of Ruby's arrest and the stuff that they've been charged over, but there's a lot of stuff that happened in the content throughout the years that is extremely questionable, to say the least. And I would like to think they bear that in mind when it comes to the custody case, but I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know really anything to do with this properly, so I don't actually know clearly, but you would like to think so. I'm not sure how long these custody cases usually take. Again, one of them is actually in custody right now, probably overcomplicates it a lot, so I mean, it probably is going to be a long time before we hear any final answers. I have also just seen a picture that they've included in this article where it says Kevin Frankie and his adult daughter Sherry Frankie arrive at the pre-trial hearing in the 8-passenger family's child welfare case on Tuesday, October 17, 2023, so this was obviously last month. And yeah, I mean, by the picture, we've got Sherry, Frankie, and Kevin in the same vicinity, walking together. I did see this at the time, and obviously people are debating, does this mean that Sherry and Kevin are on good terms, or they've just showed up together because it is a case involving F1, involving the family? Obviously, we don't know, right? I don't want to speculate on that. All we know is what people have said previously, what Sherry said previously, but of course, her opinion's going to change. We don't know. Literally have no idea. The only thing we do know is the stuff that we've seen on, Sherry's Instagram, on Chad's Instagram as well. He went live on Instagram not too long ago. I know I didn't mention it in a video, but he literally did just go live on Instagram. He was with, a friend. I believe they were in, school, or I don't know what they call it in America. I would assume he's in, our version of university, but I don't know what that is in America. But he was in some type of class, it looked like. He didn't say much. He didn't say anything about the case particularly, but he looked to be in good spirits. Obviously, we've heard from Sherry that she's got in touch with the rest of the family and stuff now, which is lovely to see, obviously. I think the main thing that we can all just hope happens in this situation is that justice is served regarding Ruby and Jodi. It seems like they're not going to be let out on bail anytime soon. Again, I could be wrong about this, right? But it's been something that's been brought up a lot and they've been denied every single time, which to me is the right thing to do, clearly, right? They deserve to have their bail denied. So yeah, justice being served is one thing, but also that children can just live their best life at this point, because they have been through a lot, to say the least. A lot more than many, the majority of children their age, as people their age. And you would just hope over time that they get to live their best life and just enjoy it, and not have to go through this anymore. And it seems like we're not going to hear anything from Kevin directly anytime soon regarding the actual case itself, or this, as from the information what we just heard, he's not going to talk about it. But also from his attorney, who was talking a lot previously, but isn't anymore. I don't know the exact reason for that. Maybe it's because the interviews were having a negative effect. No one was really believing what was said. Or maybe it is just the case that they want to be a bit more private. They don't want to say the wrong thing in these interviews that could affect the actual case itself. The only thing that we've actually even seen from Kevin since the arrest is that police body cam footage where he was trying to work out a way to get Sherry Frankie arrested for burglary. So when that is the only thing that we've seen of Kevin since this situation happened, you can see why a lot of people are worried about this whole custody hearing, but again, we don't know the ins and outs of exactly what is going on here and what has happened. We just know the information that's been made public, and yeah, so we don't know what's going to happen, but of course, when we do find out, I am going to make a video, I'm going to update you. But yeah, either way, that is the information that came out in the last day. I would love to know your thoughts down below in the comment section on everything that I spoke about in today's video, and yeah, I'm going to leave it there. So if you're new, subscribe, all that stuff, and until the next one, I'll see you guys in a bit, alright? Goodbye.